Alright, a midweek video. This is an energy drink, by the way. I don't actually drink alcohol. But today we get to talk about the Steiner P4XI. And this is an optic I've had for a long time. I really like it. I use it a ton. I probably put 2,000 to 3,000 rounds on it. But it's taken me a long time to get to actually finishing the review on it, just because I know people aren't going to be interested in it, even though it's fantastic. And it's something that I can't recommend you buy because for what it is, it's far overpriced. Now to kill the video right here, this is a 1:4x24 LPVO with an MSRP of $1,031.99. Now we're in a really interesting place in the market currently where even something like a 1:6 5 years ago would have looked like a great magnification range. However, now if it's not a 1:8 or even with more and more 1:10s coming onto the market, most people don't have a big interest in it. So going all the way back down to a 1:4, even though that is a very usable magnification range, as we'll get into later, it is so unappealing to the general audience that asking nearly $1,000, even at a slightly more reasonable street price of $800, it's still not something that 99.9% of people are going to stomach, because again, that is just at least what people are going to consider to be brutally overpriced. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I've used this optic for a really long time. I quite enjoy it. I use it on just about everything that needs an optic, but I didn't pay for it. I got this for free from Optics Planet. That is why it is in the beautiful OpMod FDE. I do have a discount code for Optics Planet. If you use Focus, you save 7%. That is not an affiliate link. It just lets them know that they can send me more product to review. Use it at your own discretion. But of course, I didn't pay for it, and I would not pay for it, even though the lowest I've seen it recently is about $600 to $650. However, again, there's just a lot of great LPVOs, or at least decent LPVOs that you can get out there for the sub $600 price range that are going to have double, if not slightly more than double, the magnification range and therefore the perceived value. Now, while we're talking about it, we might as well go over some of the basics. So size and weight is very good, coming in at just over 10 inches long. Weight is at 17.3 ounces, which is on the lighter side of the spectrum, which we would hope, because again, we're only getting that 1:4 magnification range. 30mm main tube, 20mm objective, fixed parallax at 100 yards. Field of view is quite good, or at least what I consider to be very good, coming in at 110 feet on the low end at 100 yards. That's 1x at 100 yards, and then 27.5 feet at the high end, which is again only 4x. Now the eye relief and eye box is interesting because the eye relief is rated at about 3.5 inches, which is accurate at 1x. It is a fairly short, quote unquote, short eye relief for a 1x optic. However, the eye box is fairly forgiving. That's going to be your up, down, left, and right. But again, that eye relief is just a little bit shorter than some other optics that are maybe a little bit more current. Now, you only go up to 4x magnification at the top end. It's still very forgiving. You still get a good 3.5 inches of eye relief. Eye box still looks good. Field of view is again very good. Now, in terms of controls, we have capped windage and elevation. In terms of illumination, this is one of the main selling points of the optic, is that it is a true daylight bright illumination, because it is utilizing the fiber optic technology that a lot of more modern scopes are copying, because people really like to have that daylight bright super fast acquisition reticle that allows them to pick it up faster than, say, traditional LED illumination. Now, getting into the illumination dial itself, it does have an offsetting in between each adjustment, which is quite nice. However, you are most likely going to be on the top setting most of the time, and that is because while this is a daylight bright reticle, it is not the brightest of the daylight bright reticles. For instance, the Primary Arms Nova, which kills this optic basically because it's $300, gets far brighter than you will probably ever need, but it does have essentially 2 or 3 extra settings above daylight bright, whereas the Steiner P4XI, its top setting is what I would consider to be truly daylight bright. Now, moving back to the magnification ring, you have a 180-degree throw between 1 and 4, and the magnification ring itself does have nice knurling on it. However, it is a little bit stiffer than you might like. It is smooth, but it is, again, relatively difficult to adjust. However, my package from Optics Planet did include a additional throw lever that you could install, which is how I used it, and it was, again, quite nice. Other than that, the only other thing on the optic is your adjustable diopter in the rear for adjusting the reticle to your eyes. Talking about the reticle briefly, because I believe this is a wire reticle, not a etched reticle, because of the fiber optic illumination in the center. In the middle, you have a tiny little fiber optic wire that illuminates very, very brightly, as we've discussed, which is basically what you're going to use 99% of the time you're using this optic. And then below that, you have mil hashes in, I believe, 1 mil increments. No windage, nothing special like that because of the nature of the reticle itself. Very simple, very effective as well for its intended use case, which is probably 0 to 400 yards, with the ability to stretch out further if you really had to. Certainly not ideal at longer ranges, especially with 5.56, where you might want wind holds for high wind environments, which I usually find myself here in South Dakota. However, for that 0 to 400 yard envelope, I think it performs quite well. Now, all of that seems well and good, but Primary Arms basically makes the same scope in a 1 to 6 magnification range for about $300. So where does Steiner get the nerve to charge nearly $1,000 for the P4XI? And the main difference there is going to be the glass quality. Now, this is using German glass, and that comes with German prices. For the most part, we'll talk about another option in just a minute, but the Steiner P4XI does have very, very good glass quality compared to the mediocre glass quality of the Primary Arms Nova. Now, the Nova does have a couple extra magnification on the top end versus the Steiner P4XI. However, in certain circumstances, the glass quality, the quality of information that you're able to get out of the glass, is going to be better than what you might be able to get with worse glass at a higher magnification, although that is going to be very, very situation dependent. So depending on how you're using it, lighting conditions, so on and so forth, target distance, target size, you might be able to get a slight edge with one optic versus the other. So let me describe the type of person you would have to be to seriously consider the Steiner P4XI in 2023. You would have to be an absolute glass snob, looking for an LPVO, but only looking for it in, again, that 0 to 400 yard range, and again, looking for something fairly lightweight, where of course price is not an option. However, even that doesn't really fully describe the situation, because there are other scopes of similar glass quality, maybe not quite as good, but similar glass quality in that $800 to $1,000 price range that are also going to be fairly small and lightweight, but have better features, better magnification ranges as well. So the Steiner P4XI was great when it was introduced, was great when it was $400. At $600, it's a tough sell. At $800, it's impossible to sell. Now, there is another optic that I did review recently, the Continental 1 to 6, which is also using German glass. It's a 1 to 6, similar size and weight, slightly better illumination, let's say, and coming in at a price of about $400, which is, only a slight price premium over the Primary Arms Nova. And hopefully in this section right here, I'm overlaying the video that I already filmed for that video several months ago, because I'm lazy and I don't want to redo that section. Now, something else that I should mention about the P4XI is it is put together extremely well, which is nice. So it is going to have a slight durability increase over a lot of the smaller, or not smaller, the cheaper Chinese optics, because I did do a double drop test on this optic. So at first we do a 5-round control group at 50 yards, just to make sure that the gun is actually zeroed and doing what it's supposed to do. And then we do a shoulder height drop onto dirt and rocks. The Steiner P4XI in the Primary Arms PLX mount, which is a very expensive mount, held zero perfectly. The second drop is then a shoulder height onto an AR500 steel plate. It did have a shift in zero, if I'm remembering correctly, about 3 inches, maybe 4 inches to the left, which is about 8 MOA. However, it was very easy to simply re-zero and continue using it. So as far as durability of an LPVO, most LPVOs die at the AR500 steel plate drop. This didn't die, and it had one of the smaller point of impact shifts that we've seen on an LPVO. So, as far as durability goes, it does quite well. There are a lot of positive aspects about the scope. It has good size and weight, it's not too big, it's not too heavy, glass quality is good, the field of view is good, the eye relief is decent, the eye box is good, great illumination, very simple reticle, the price absolutely kills this optic. Again, if it was 400 bucks, you could in theory consider it, even though personally I think that there are still other scopes that knock it off. But if you don't want to buy a Chinese optic owned by a Chinese company, you like the Steiner name, so on and so forth, then it is something that you could consider at, again, maybe $400, maybe $500. Anything more than that, and it's just a really, really tough sell, which is why I'm glad I don't work for Steiner trying to sell one of these things. So, with all of that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. God bless.